Hey guys, Maki Tabo Wahamachi here, and today I just wanted to share with couples, in particular the married ones, the importance of communication. I know that we've been told several times, we've heard several times about how important communication is in a marriage. But one thing I've discovered is that we still struggle with understanding how to communicate or which method of communication we can actually use. So I'm just going to share you some pointers with you today. One, we have spiritual communication. We know that this is the part where we pray for one another. We pray together. We communicate with God about ourselves, about our spouses, about our marriages and families. That is part of the spiritual communication which needs to be ongoing because that is where we actually feed our souls from. So that is another one, the first form of communication. The second form of communication is the mental and emotional communication, which is the psychological communication. This is where we have to be careful because a whole lot of issues comes from there. There's a reason why it is written in the Bible that guard your heart with all diligence because for out of it flows the issues of life. So our soul, basically, that is where we process a whole lot of things which builds our lives, a whole lot of things which shapes our lives, in particular ourselves and our marriages. So we need to be mindful of what we think, how we think about ourselves, about our spouses, about our marriage, and the family that we are in. So it is very important. We've shared several times before because we believe that the issues that people often fight about are not necessarily about what is happening at this point, but it is about what they think and how they feel about one another. You'll find people fighting over a mug that is sitting on a table, whereas in actual fact, the guy is thinking, oh, vele wantella, you know, and on the other hand, the wife is thinking, this one thinks I'm his maid, and the whole issue is blown out of proportion, a simple mug, to a point where when you ask them, why are you guys fighting? You hear, yeah, she left the mug there. Whereas it is not necessarily about the mug. And we spend a lot of time addressing the surface instead of dealing with the root cause. So the problem is how we communicate with and within ourselves, mentally and emotionally, and therefore projecting it onto our spouses, and that affects our marriages negatively. So think about what you're thinking about. Because if you don't think about what you're thinking about, your emotions are going to feel what you are thinking, which in actual fact might not be the fact or might not be a reality. Because your emotions will formulate whatever that your thoughts is feeding, and it will create chaos. So be mindful of the psychological communication with and within yourself because it will flow down to how you communicate with your spouse. The third form of communication is physical communication. I know that when we talk about physical communication, this one we know how to do it better. You've heard people say, when I'm angry, only this part is angry, that other part is not. And I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with it. That is how you roll, that is how you do things. But I can tell you that physical communication, sex, is another form of communication. Sex is another form of communication. So whether you have it with your mind and emotions in a bad place or not, but it is another form of communication. And if you use that form of communication to try and medicate your thoughts and emotions, unfortunately, that is not going to help. At some point, that is why we've got kids that are born out of chaos because we are busy having sex and making kids, but mentally and emotionally, we are not in the right place. So you need to understand that sex is another form of communication. It's a physical communication. Things that we need to pay attention to again when it comes to physical communication. I know that a lot of people would even ask, how do you keep the spark alive? We are going on date nights. we are going out on trips and things like that, but we're still losing the spark. We don't understand what is happening. One, it's simply because the mind and emotions are not in the right place, even when you are doing all those things, and you think that it will fix the psychological communication. It will not, because remember, your physical communication flows from your psychological stance, flows from your thoughts and emotions. So if it comes to the physical, you just actually dwell together with understanding and in one accord, and it will just be so perfect. So the problem is that if you don't find a way to create a spark, and you want to find external issues to keep the spark alive, and I'm not only talking about the sex spark, I'm talking about the connection, I'm talking about the companionship, I'm talking about the alignment, I'm talking about the soul mating. So if you want to keep that active, the physical part of it which can help is when you learn the touchy language. Do you know that a lot of couples don't really touch? They don't really connect. You find a couple walking in a mall, you wonder if the husband is actually chasing the wife, trying to stop her from buying things or wasting money, or else if the husband is just like in a hurry, way in front, thinking, what the heck am I doing here? I'm not supposed to be here. She was supposed to just come shopping alone. But when you understand that walking hand in hand together, that walking together, that touching one another, that hugging one another. Hey, kavara mutho ga go mana ha le tsamaya at the in public. Some don't even know how that actually contributes to the confidence in your spouse, the confidence that my husband is walking hand in hand with me in public. It's a simple thing, but for some people means a lot. Even in the house, when you are in the house, learn to just sit together, hold each other, hug one another, just be there. When your husband or your spouse is cooking in the kitchen, be there. Whenever they're busy doing whatever, stirring the food and everything, just a mere putting your hand on their back. Oh, and even spanking. I'm not saying hit your wife's bumps. Spanking, just touching. That on its own create the spark, keeps it alive. It makes one feel like I'm accepted here. I am, valuable. I am still, my spouse still appreciates me. My spouse still loves me, and they still find me sexy. So you need to learn the art of being touchy, because at the end of the day, we can sit together in the house, we can do everything together, but at the end of the day, if the only time we're going to touch one another is when we have sex, we are most likely going to lose the spark. So let that physical communication be looked at holistically. What are the different ways of communicating physically? You need to learn to do that, because it contributes a lot as well in how you're gonna enjoy or regret your sex life. So be mindful of that. And then the last one basically is the financial communication. I know that this has been an issue in a whole lot of marriages, and I'm going to tell you why. And we've also heard in the stats, they're saying that finances are the major cause of divorces, and I'm saying that is not true. What causes the divorce is our relationship with or without money. How we think, how we feel, how we relate, the perceptions and ideologies that we have about money is what will make it is what will make us either dwell together financially and learn to communicate financially, or else it will break us. Your relationship, your thoughts, your feelings when it comes to money plays a major role on how you're going to relate to your spouse and how you're going to communicate financially with them. We know that there's a whole lot of secrecy that comes with the financial aspect of things. We've been, taught, when you grow up as a single person, you don't need to show anybody your pay slip. You don't need to show anyone your bank account. You don't need to tell everybody how you are making your money. That worked when you were single. But when you are married, remember, the financial openness can resolve a whole lot of dysfunctions. What it's going to do is it's going to even make your spouse to trust you more, because we learn with the perception, we grow with the perception and the ideologies that finances are a private thing. But when you get into marriage, you need to learn, you need to understand that it's not only about that, but it's about the art of being open, the art of openness to your spouse. It will create a whole lot of a safe space for the both of you to dwell and to understand, so much that when unfortunate situations hit your finances, your spouse will know that, okay, we got 10 rands today, 1 rand went here, 2 rand went there, and unfortunately we are left with 7 rand. And how do we go about working or maximizing these 7 rands? How do we increase these 7 rands? What can we do with these 7 rands? So that is the type of communication which a lot of couples still needs to learn. It saddens me to see a lot of marriages whereby they've got 2 incomes, households that have got 2 incomes, struggling financially and bringing a substantial amount of money, but they are struggling financially because of the secrecy or because of the financial separation. They work in silos when it comes to their finances. They're not communicating at all. The only communication there is when one takes care of the bills or whatever responsibilities that they have to take care of. And you look at households where there's only 1 income and they are thriving. They're doing their best, and things are happening. And when you sit down with them and you find out what is happening, you hear, look, we are just open about our finances. My wife, my husband knows exactly what is coming into the home. Some you will not even know who's bringing the money. But you will just see things happening. You will just see them prospering. You will just see them making it, and you wonder, why do people who are making more money struggling so much, whereas those that are making lesser than them are thriving? So one of the issues that contributes to that is the fact that there is financial secrecy. There is no openness when it comes to their finances, or there is basically purely just no knowledge, wisdom, and skills on how to work with finances. And unfortunately, if that communication is broken, if we brought the negative ideologies and perceptions about money and we make that infiltrate our marriages, we are unfortunately going to struggle on the financial journey, on the financial communication. Most of the time, there are those wives and there are those husbands who are just as open as can be. And when things go up, they rejoice together. When things go down, they understand how to support one another. They understand, they sit and communicate, what can we do? How can we do it? What can we bring, in order to remedy the situation? They do it together. But when one is working in silo, when one is working as an individual yet in the marriage, when they hit rock bottoms financially, the burden falls on them. And the unfortunate part is that their spouses will feel it. And when they feel it, they will be having communications and fights and battles inside, because now their expectations can never be met. And they don't even understand why those expectations cannot be met, why those needs cannot be met, because they've always been met. But simply because there is no communication, there is no openness when it comes to financial communication. So learn to communicate financially effectively, so you will eliminate a whole lot of issues. I know it works for you whereby your wife does not have to know, how you're making your money, where it's coming from as a husband, because you are the head of the home. And I don't know where we got that head of the home, because the Bible clearly says that the husband is the head of the wife. And that to me says that both of you are the head of the home, because you have a responsibility to make and to build the home together. That is why God can choose either of you to be the financial source, to be the financial vessel for your home. We'll talk about that next time. I love you guys.